Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Decred in Depth. Very, very excited about our guest today, a lady who needs no introduction, especially if you're watching this podcast, this live stream. You absolutely know who Coin Artist is, longtime standing member of the Decred community, CEO of Blockade Games and Neon District. And I just want to give everyone a heads up. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff so we can get the engagement up. Share this on Twitter, all that good stuff. But the format's going to be a little bit different than what we traditionally do on Decred in Depth. A little bit less formal. Coin Artist and I actually, so just so you guys know, Coin Artist was one of the very first. I think she had to have been the third interview I ever did, and this was back in the days when I was like using Zoom and recording my podcast episodes. This is back in 2018, and we haven't talked since then, but we have a lot to discuss. And so, without further ado,
Yes, hey.
hello, Coin Artist. Welcome back. Actually, I should say.
Yeah, this is amazing that since we last spoke and you have created this whole career out
Yeah.
of interviews.
It's been kind of a crazy ride, crazy story. And what's even crazier is that interview back in 2018 was actually, you don't know this, but that was around the time I first found Decred and like started learning about it. And you mentioning it during that podcast was actually sort of one of the further catalysts that pushed me down the Decred rabbit hole.
That's amazing. So I guess, how long have you been doing this at Decred?
I was voted on by the stakeholders in January of 2021, but in August of 2020, I started a podcast called Staked Podcast, and it was like just about Decred. And so I did about like 10 interviews for that, and then got brought on to Decred in Depth.
Amazing. Well, this is so fun to talk to you. I guess I have a lot of questions about the status of the Decred community and where you guys are, where you fit into this sort of game world that we've
Yeah.
created with NFTs.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm really excited for the community members. And Margaret and I talked camera, and we kind of discussed that this is going to be a little bit of a back and forth since we have some rapport. It's not going to be just like straight interview questions. And I really want her to challenge me, challenge the community. She's obviously a marketing genius. And we just want to be able to push ourselves. And so there's going to be constructive criticism, tough conversations, tough questions. But let's just jump into what was it that initially attracted you to Decred?
Ooh. I don't know if I can remember. I guess like it was the government. So originally, I was combing through Bitcoin Talk in 2016, and there was this whole governance conversation going on about Bitcoin because people couldn't agree on certain governance features for Bitcoin. And I found Decred somewhere between 2016 and 2017 on Bitcoin Talk, and I just loved the updates. And then when I found the social media, the updates, they were so concise and professional. And a few of my friends and I found that there was just these amazing developers working very heads down on Decred without really any marketing support whatsoever at the time. And so that felt like this like hidden gem. And yeah, so like myself and Crypto Messiah at the time were like, well, all we have to do is really tell people about Decred. Like people just don't know. And from there, Crypto Messiah with his meme making and me with my crypto puzzles, we started working closely with the team and the community. And that's actually where I found Kyle Chivers, who contributes to like Blockade with animation work that he does with his Fire Thought Studios. But a lot of relationships came from there. And yeah, so I guess like what first attracted me though was um, the consistent development, the innovative development, and the like prioritizing vision and ethics, maybe like ethics over and mission driven. So Decred is very mission driven. And I think that just attracted a lot of us in the space that are mission driven type characters.
For, for
So
sure.
yeah, so I had a good time exploring there
Yeah.
during 2016, 2017.
And this was still, I mean, obviously, a lot of time has passed 3 years, and this space moves so quickly. So this was very, very early days, very, very early days for crypto. And I guess, did you participate in the airdrop?
No, I
Okay.
didn't get any of the airdrop. I wasn't that early.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you joined in on the marketing team afterwards. Tell us about that process, about, sort of what you did to like reach out and like, and even talk about the crypto puzzle that you built for Decred, because I don't know the intricacies of that, but many people have been talking about it.
So actually, so prior to Decred, I was funding my own prizes for the puzzle work, and I was assembling teams, and we would have these educational experiences that we would share. And with Decred, when I came into the circle, um, it was made clear to me by Jake, that CEO of what's the company?
Uh,
What's the company?
yeah, only because you're
The
asking me, I can't. And they've rebranded. Only because you're asking, I can't. Someone will put it in the chat, but let's just keep going. Someone will put it in the chat, I'm
Oh,
sure.
okay. The development company that does the work, contract work for Decred, they were starting to scale out and hire contractors, and so I was like, well, I can do this work for marketing purposes and educational purposes to teach people about Decred as a community builder, and then and I got to be one of the first contractors for Decred, and it was really fun. It was like $12 an hour, capped at maybe $12 a week, something like that.
Okay. Wow.
Like, this wasn't, of course, like all of us contractors at the time, we were working all the time because we were just so passionate and we wanted to see this coin fly. So, and then I actually, along the way, as I proved my work and the success, and we saw the community like grow around a lot of, I guess, every puzzle experience that we shipped, it seemed like we had a lot of influx. And I got my pay increased, my hours increased, and I was allowed to build more. So it was a really cool experience. To be able to design my career like that underneath the advisory of their development team, and with the community feedback.
Company Zero is the name of the company. It just took me a little while. Put me on the spot there. Uh, so, what did that experience teach you going forward as a business leader in terms of like the future of work in the company you're building now? I think we are having a little bit of connectivity issues. We're going to just stay tuned and give Coin Artists a chance to reconnect.
Oh, sorry, it seems like the reception. I don't know if it's on me. I'm on the hotel Wi-Fi.
We're good now.
Okay. Sorry, what was the question? What was the experience of like what?
The experience you had working for the DAO, what did that teach you in terms of the future of work and how to manage a company in the digital age right now with Neon District? I know your companies work very remotely from each other. So just what did that experience teach you about the future of work?
I saw a tweet today that Web 2 you work for someone, and with Web 3 you work. What are you working, or what projects are you involved with? And so like there is this conversation happening right now with like companies have this way of owning people, and as we challenge the space forward as creatives, as developers, people don't want to just be tied to one identity because they themselves have a broader identity than like one company. Um, and the space is really challenging that. And so actually, as someone that has a centralized company currently, we're seeing that friction of a very hot NFT space. And also the different DAOs and ways that you can have other decentralized teams, and trying to think about how can we still be a centralized entity. And I think like this is probably maybe even challenges that other centralized, like even like for example, I don't know if Company Zero has ever experienced this, but if you have a core team of contractors that do development work, how do you keep them incentivized instead of going off and launching their own thing that they could make tons of money doing? When you have a mission driven entity, a lot of times people are opting to be there for those reasons. So, yeah, I guess like my experience with Decred was of course we're here, and of course we're going to build, and of course we're going to work extra hard because we're in it as a team. We want to see the success. And then carrying that over to a centralized company, though, it's been a little challenging in some of those problems, and realizing we're trying to be competitive with Web3 projects, and developers that don't want to be tied to one like development experience. So yeah, anyways, I'm navigating these problems in real time.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
problems,
No,
like,
yeah,
but it's experiences. This is a new frontier, right?
for sure. Like the new business hurdles, and that's why I wanted to ask, because I knew that you would have some insights. And staying on Decred, and again, this is a conversation, and maybe even a little debate, and I think we're going to maybe start getting into some of those things right now. Do you still hold Decred? Do you stake Decred? Do you vote on any proposals? And have you ever sold any of your position?
So I did sell my Decred. I did this year. And I honestly, I guess I was looking at the project, and I do think that it has a long-term value proposition and it's a great project. But after the bear market that we all experienced, I wanted to move into USDC, and kind of capture some of the value and reassess things like just because of the trauma of the bear market. So
Okay.
like, not like any hate on Decred as much as I just wanted to de-risk.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Just risk adjustment makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Well, and also I believe in right now with um, the content creator environment we have, like everybody has the ability to generate new wealth or value that is more than just out of a token now. We can all like utilize our skills and yeah, just realize capital in new ways. So like you might not necessarily have to hold forever to only be the only path to create value, to have to but the fact you could create something, an art series that could do well, or a game, or something, you could have some other experiences, right, where you're monetizing. Um so
So,
anyways.
so yeah, what you're suggesting there is like it's sort of like this. It initially used to be that token appreciation was the main way to value accrual, and what you're talking about is a sort of new creator economy, correct?
Right.
And
Right.
I definitely want to um, talk on that and touch on that, and obviously we're going to get into NFTs and what you're doing at Blockade Games, and hopefully we can be tying all this into yeah, like you asked me off camera, like what is Decred doing about NFTs and gaming and such, and sort of this metaverse world, and where do I see the project fitting in? Um, Thank you for answering that question. I still want to know, did you ever at any point stake, and were you ever like voting on proposals, or was this kind of a passive thing? And acknowledging to the community that there are different ways to interact with Decred, right? Like people can just hold it. They don't have to stake and vote on proposals. And that's kind of like the point.
Yeah. So yeah, I did stake for a long time. And I did vote originally on some of the proposals as they came out. But I guess I lost engagement, when I moved on to other things. But yeah, so I'm sorry I don't have like any great
Yeah.
answers
No, no,
there.
no. That is the right. I mean, you answered the question. How do you view the project today?
So I guess like I see the project as being pretty quiet currently, and I think that that's probably, I mean, I don't know if that's true. It's just like I haven't been, looking for what's happening with Decred, but I do know, like after talking to some people I'm close to that are still involved in Decred, there's still proposals happening. There's development happening. I just I'm not My attention's not being drawn to Decred, which um I don't know what play Decred would want to make that stays within their mission and what is valuable, or their value and their core values, where they feel like they could engage in this space for engagement purposes, specifically for users. Like I feel like there's a lot of challenges here that I learned at Decred, which were um, the end user doesn't really care about the underlying technology. And as much as the mass end user, and as much as that pains me to say, because I was very passionate about the technology, it's kind of true. Like even in NFT gaming, and users will always opt, like they're always opt for ease than they will like something like security features.
For sure.
um and a lot of times that's why applications will enforce certain things, like you have to have 2FA before you can move further into the application, and they'll put a wall there, which no app developer actually wants to do, but like, you know what I mean, like because you lose users at that point. um
How
and
was
I
your
feel like,
experience with
yeah.
the DCR wallet in terms of user experience? Did you find it like very accessible, easy to engage with, or were you impressed, not impressed?
Yeah, actually, well, you know what, I didn't I haven't seen the newest build, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay,
Like,
yeah, but
yeah,
from what your memory though, from your memory.
it. Oh, I don't want to. I don't want to say, because we were in the. It was the. There was like the Decrediton. I don't know if that's Decrediton is still live.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, we can move on. Um, can, you were talking about attention and drawing attention, and from my experience, obviously, as someone who's on the marketing team, right, I do feel like there is chatter, and I do feel like that chatter is definitely like not very vocal, especially compared to NFT hype and I guess some of the marketing efforts of other projects. Like you said, Decred is definitely taking like a conservative approach, and I think that what you say about at least people not caring about the technology is true. And maybe I'm going to say kind of what attracted me to Decred and what still attracts me to Decred, and then maybe you can kind of give me your thoughts after that in response, a little bit of like a debate here of sorts. Because initially it was just Bitcoin, right? And this store of value, distributed ledger, et cetera, et cetera. And then it was kind of like I came into the space in 2017 off the, sort of the tail end of the fork wars and the New York wars, whatever. And so you're kind of watching this like governance thing, and then you see Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, and so you're like, okay, I think I understand that governance like is something and it's important. And as I dived more, I to me the value I see in Decred now is the same store of value proposition that Bitcoin holds, except with inherent staking. So like obviously I can hold that asset as a bearer instrument and continue to stake it. I think that like the decentralization in terms of the mining and the staking is still it's obviously not as good as Bitcoin, but it's very good. But really, I like this idea of a corporation, right? The digital corporation, a DAO, as they've come to be called, whose like equity is also a currency, in that whose participation in the DAO is like essentially individuals can elect to what degree they want to engage with it, but whose mission is driven towards value appreciation and value accrual, and essentially like the privacy element as well, which Bitcoin doesn't have. I think that if we understand these blockchains as money and as currency, like I think it's reasonable to assume that there might become more than one money. Ethereum's obviously a competitor. Bitcoin, I think, is the clear, obvious, like number one winner. And I just think that obviously there's Monero and Zcash, but the upgradability and functionality of Decred, although users don't like care about the technology, users do care about money. And I think that like that money equity, and then kind of like this organizational structure on top of it that like funds different elements, I just think it's very powerful and like at least unique and worthy of my efforts for sure. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, well, so that's the thing, is that Decred is like you said, more conservative. um and they've, the developers have made choices, like they didn't want to they didn't want to compromise or prioritize some of the features that are like with Turing complete, with what happens with Ethereum versus what they're building, and they have reasons for that. So and that's because those developers are playing the long tail game of like why the mission, like I was saying, the mission driven of why Decred, which goes back to the why Bitcoin conversation, which a lot of people, like even these NFT users that are coming into the space, have no idea like the purpose or vision of why we have these assets, which don't require a third party to, these permissionless networks essentially. And so I think that at the end of the day, we're going to get to a place. I mean, with Bitcoin, that like there's things that the qualities about Bitcoin are ones that are very desirable, and no one really cares about until like you really need to care about it. Like it's like one of those things where it's fine that these other monetization model, or just money, how we think of money, it's fine that we think about it this other way, like with cash and with digital money being a part of these different institutions and with nations, until something really goes wrong. And then we don't have any solutions in place except for these decentralized networks. So that's why it's really important for Bitcoin to succeed. And then Decred is complementary to the Bitcoin experience, because it is Bitcoin plus that DAO model, which Bitcoin's not really designed to scale with a decentralized governance in the way that Decred is built to scale for that. And the challenge, though, is how do you make it so people are aware of that, even in like a worst case scenario where the situation arises? How do you get a normal user that is panicked, like to know that that option exists? And so that user acquisition and driving them to that solution is still a challenge, because
Absolutely.
the technical savvy that it requires for people to understand why Decred is a solution is not easy. So we're talking about, like, if you think about things at a funnel, like as a funnel, think about like problems with government and money at the top, like, and then there's Bitcoin, like, and users generally have to walk through a funnel with steps to get the knowledge of why the next thing makes sense, and they become a more committed user, more dedicated user, where that end of that funnel should be because Decred. And they have to have this experience of to walk through that funnel that leads them with that answer. And currently that's a challenging thing for a person to do by themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was an attempt, this website, Pavel, shout out Pavel, with Decred. But you're absolutely right. Like that funnel of knowledge, like you said, it's very complex and it's deep. And there's definitely debates in my mind as to like at what point, if ever, will users like value the things that Decred has to offer. Like maybe the answer is never, but why I'm still involved in the project, and my belief is that they'll matter when it matters. Like when the time comes for Decred to shine. Like I don't know what that event will be or catalyst may be. I don't know, but I think that the narrative right now is definitely Ethereum and NFT in like a little bit DAO, but I don't think we definitely haven't gotten to like the DAO narrative. I think that might be a cycle away, to be honest. I think this narrative will be NFT, but I think that once people really start understanding this idea of digital scarcity, it will take some sort of cataclysmic event for them to realize, oh, maybe Ethereum is not as decentralized as I thought, or why does the decentralization matter? Or maybe Solana is not as decentralized as I thought, or Solana is going to shut down for 4 hours, and those sort of things. They don't matter until they do matter. And so I think you said it's like the long game.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like we saw how Solana shut down, right? And the would have in 2017, and the fact that basically almost no one cared.
Yeah. Do you need to answer that, and we could put this on a waiting mode?
Yes, 1 second.
Okay, we'll wait. Are you okay? Coin artist?
I am. My roommate's just answering. We have food coming.
Okay, all right. Okay, good.
But we can keep talking. There's food being brought.
Okay, perfect. I think you were actually saying something. You were talking about Solana.
Yeah, I was saying that it's just amazing. It amazed me that, so there was another project called uh starts with the L,
Luna?
Lisk.
Oh, Lisk. Okay.
Lisk in 2017 that completely broke in the same, maybe not totally similar way, but in kind of a similar way where the blockchain broke. And it ended the legitimacy of the project forever. There was, but Solana, with all their VC backing, with all their community backing, for whatever reason, it was fine. That like it's okay that it would. People almost looked at it like a Cloudflare problem, like, oh, the network's just down for a little bit. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. And you see that as like a systemic issue, essentially, right? Like you see, like you're curious as to why it didn't just break, or you're saying the VCs are the reason it didn't just break, like the project didn't just die.
I don't know if it's just the VCs, but so like we saw EOS, right? Like EOS,
Yeah, yeah,
big VC
yeah,
backing,
yeah. Came and went.
and they have so much money and they can't get anyone to build a good product or bring community there for the life of them.
Yeah,
I would love to know the side by side comparison of why EOS has completely failed, even though they have funding for all these things, whereas Solana seems to be doing really well, despite having these huge like problems that they were having. So yeah, so like at the end of the day, if people are making money and there are products being built and there are applications and infrastructure being made and communities are rallying, like people will like gloss over the some of the underlying issues that could be important someday. But it's almost kind of like how we think about, the US has mass debt and we're going to be bankrupt, but are we ever actually, like, are we ever really, like, not really. It's almost like this conditioning applies to all these networks. Like, it's kind of broken, but we're kind of used to broken, so
yeah.
it's fine.
No,
You know what I mean?
I do know. I know exactly what you mean. And I like where this conversation's going. It's definitely starting to shift to some of these other protocols, and we're going to get into interoperability. And I actually am going to ask you some questions about Ethereum and your development choices, and obviously Plasma Bears and Neon District hashtag Free the Bears. But before we do, I want to ask one last question in regards to Decred. Kind of a difficult one. I did want to save it for last because I just want to move on. But someone asked, why did you leave the Decred community in a dramatic fashion? Now, mind you, I have no idea about anything, and obviously there's always three versions of a story. Regarding proposed ASICs being developed for Decred, do you regret it now, or would you have gone about it differently?
So actually, that was at the time my husband's project. He wanted to make ASICs for Decred because he was really passionate about the Decred project, and I was just supporting him. But when I left the Decred project, there was a character there who I really appreciated. His name was Ingsoc, and was a great prolific writer. Actually worked
For
to bring
sure.
him back to the project. Well, after he had gone previously, and asked Jake if he would reach out and bring Ingsoc back. And there just became some bad blood at some point between, certain leadership, and with that miscommunication and like extra, when drama starts to happen, leadership just gets exhausted by it, and they try to figure out, well, what's the move. And unfortunately, during that time, the move was best for me to go. And that I had a hard time dealing with that because I was so passionate about the project. So with that, I had done some I didn't handle it well. Like, I guess, looking back, I just didn't handle like being asked to leave well. And um yeah, so
Yeah, I
these
thank you
things
for
happen,
answering the question for sure.
in careers and stuff.
For sure. And I think what's
Yeah.
super interesting about it is that these DAOs, like it's sort of a new business hierarchy model, and so it's like leaders without leaders versus the centralized model, and it is very interesting just to and complex, and sort of like what happens when corporations' dirty laundry gets aired out in public, right? Because like that's essentially what happens with these DAOs if things are being proposed online and such. And I think these are going to be very interesting things, and from a legal perspective, I find like just the balancing of interest super interesting. But before that, afterwards. Anyways, thank you for answering that. We're now going to
Yeah.
move on to our conversation about like NFTs and gaming and the metaverse. Um, I want to start with, and I have an interview where we've talked a lot about Neon District and Blockade Games. I want to start with why Ethereum for you? Because uh, earlier parts of this conversation, we're talking about, you need to get developers and you need users and that user experience. So I want to ask you sort of why you chose Ethereum, why you still believe in Ethereum, and yeah, sort of how you see that playing into some of these other protocols like Solana and Polkadot and whatever else.
So they didn't exist at the time. So like for example, Plasmaverse was the first like um, layer two solution that existed, and we wanted to build a free to play blockchain game. So in trying to think about how we could do that so that players could mint for free, and those expenses are covered on the back end because it's really cheap, and then also have a gateway so people could move their assets over from layer two to Ethereum and settle on the mainnet. Loom Network at the time was the only solution. What happened was Loom Network totally shut down. So when they did, the only bears that exist now are the ones that people transferred over, paid a gas fee, and transferred over to Ethereum. And that's the problem with layer two and like sort of side chain solutions, is because they're not as reliable. And then so Polygon was our when Loom Network shut down. Polygon was the next best runner at the time, and we're making options right now. We're optimizing for user experience. So like we're looking at all the existing networks, who's furthest along, who's the most infrastructure support, who can we most easily redeploy to. So that for us is Polygon, and there's other people. There's other project like Dapper with Flow and people that are optimizing their different networks for whatever reason. Like for example, Solana uses Rust, and um, Polkadot, like, and Cosmos even. So like it's just what is easiest and cheapest for us as developers to make these different changes is literally why we're making these choices. Like, can we have users play for free? Can they like have yeah, we go through a checklist like that. And
Okay.
if it means that we rewrite all of our smart contracts, that's technically pretty expensive for us to do that. And also, we want to be multi-chain. So, like for example, Neon District is supported on both Ethereum and Polygon in real time. We support up to 10 different wallets. So, any network that's EVM compatible would also technically be supported by our game.
Okay.
Uh, I see. Can I just ask? So, I see some questions in the chat about Obelisk and like and
Yeah.
the fiasco. And like,
Please.
I don't totally remember the dynamic between. There were two like ASICs. So I think like at the time, people were threatened by me leaving, and then that like carried over to my ex at the time, who was trying to do this startup project for the Obelisk with some other folks, and then there was another ASICs project that somehow entered the race, and I forget where they came from. But like, and then all of a sudden it seemed like a competition between the two, and like, and I was being overshadowing on the other project because people thought I was associated more directly than what I was, other than just being like, a spouse of someone that was trying to do this.
For sure.
So, um, so yeah, no, I think like those teams were actually both trying to bring value to Decred. Like both of them wanted to bring ASICs to Decred to make the networks more competitive and secure at the end of the day. I don't
Okay.
think anybody was really trying to like do anything nefarious.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question in the chat, and just willing to be open with us. So we were talking about so your Ethereum decision, and you kind of explained sort of the vision there. I actually do definitely want to take out this quick moment to shout out Diego and Ben, who are kind of your partners in crime at Neon District, especially Ben. I think is one of the most underrated minds in the space. His Twitter, everyone go follow him. I'll have that in the description afterwards. It's one of my favorite follows. Diego, one of the early NFT artists, and his work and is extremely valuable now. And your ability to find talent, Margaret, was something that like after I first met you and talked to you, you were talking about. I'm trying to think of the term now. Generative art NFTs back in 2018. I remember you tweeting about this sort of thing, and so like. Your ability to be a visionary and leader and put these like and actually create products has been something that's just like super amazing to me from afar. But I do want to ask you, like, what are the core components that go into building a dope team like Neon District?
Well, we started so like just doing the work that we had been doing. Our community was amazing. Just puzzle solvers came from all sorts of walks of life. Some of them are like head of cybersecurity at Blizzard. Some of them are doing secret projects at Apple. Like we just were really lucky to have this sort of crew follow that work. And then from there, I started pulling up talent by people that wanted to be there anyway. And Ben was somebody I saw that solved a very difficult puzzle, and I asked him if we could like work on projects together. And then from there, when I wanted to launch the game company, he said yes. I think in our space there's so much potential and cool things we can do. It's like taking an idea, iterating on it, and then pushing the boundary just a little bit further every time. And as we do this, you attract like-minded people. And it's always better to hire, I guess, naturally in that way. But also, we did learn that, for example, building an RPG was going to be very difficult. And so we didn't have the skill sets to do an open world game design, open economy game design with an RPG from ourselves. Even though we had shipped all these other successful projects, this was a much deeper and more difficult than what, and we learned this after throwing away like 4 game designs, and a few different game engines. And so then we were able to cross paths with some previous like Magic the Gathering type designers who helped like show us, and that's why Neon District example today is an RPG plus card game. It's like it has a card game backbone, trading card game backbone, because of the fact that having an open world economy, you have to have so many fringe permutation cases to protect the overall game design. And that model actually isn't even live today. That's like something we're building towards, and we have the designs for it. What's currently live was we wanted to prove that you could have a free-to-play game where players could compete with players that have never spent money in game, could compete with people who have spent money in game, and still be like strategically some of the best players in like according to the leaderboard. So we did that with the MVP, and now we get to roll out the rest of the game and then start to introduce scarcity. So anyways, no, it's like
So
yes.
season 1 is launching, right? Because you guys launched season 0, and season 1 is up next
um season
for
so
Neon
season
District.
0, season 0 was a private build actually that never was released public. That was like, if you were a founder's key, you could
Yes.
play the season 0 build, which was actually a whole game, like a Unity game. And it didn't have the trading card game component. So that's where we learned that we needed to do the deeper development with the game design with the trading card game, was from season 0. And
Okay.
then so the MVP that went live this January was the combination of those two things, and that was the first public release.
Okay. So you guys have been building throughout the bear market, and I've been watching the iterations of your products from Arcade Game to Plasma Bears to Neon District. I'm curious, just on a personal level, having been building for so long, how do you view some of these like new NFT gaming projects that are able to raise a lot of money and have, no product at all, and are able to, do raise a bunch of money? How are you feeling about that as someone, who's actually been building? What do you think?
It actually challenges a lot of the team members to stay focused, right? Like you have a lot of talent of people that know how to go launch very successful projects with their knowledge, just their incredible knowledge base now with everything we've been building. So yeah, you see people like with PFP projects making millions of dollars. Um, so yeah, it's a challenge of mission versus I guess greed,
Cash grab. Yeah.
yeah, cash grabs. And it's a test, I guess. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like so
No, it's
I
for sure.
personally, I think it's all leading people down to why games at the end of the day. And so that for me is fine. If I, staying strong and steady and keeping our like focus on the goal, that is where the long play is. And so like it's okay if we're a little bit rough around the edges in some ways, because like give us enough time and we're doing enough of the work and polish, that's all coming. It's just our product is just so much bigger
Yeah.
than, for example, a JPEG, a generative art JPEG.
Well, let me ask you this: why gaming?
Because gaming is the way that you can. So it's the ability for people to on the internet to have a provable skill that can then give them the ability to tap into this new economy uh, without having anything, and have the chance of maybe getting their first crypto at the end of that experience. And when they get the first crypto, that changes everything for people, especially if getting like fiat is a challenge, or getting any other finance is a challenge. Like gaming, especially like gaming in a way that's not just like farming and botting. If it's actually a strategically protected game design, then you can like include people from all over the world through, as long as they have the internet, the ability to get their first crypto. And then that introduces all kinds of new creatives, content creators, types of thinkers into the world where they literally had nothing to do, because it's a lot harder to measure a skill set like so abstractly, but gaming is a direct measure of a skill set.
No, I think that's a phenomenal answer, and I think about what Axie Infinity has built and how they've been able to change so many lives in the Philippines in particular. And that was even part of our conversation back in 2018 in that first interview with me and you. But I do want to ask one very selfish question right now. When are we going to free the bears, the plasma bears? Are the old plasma bears, are they gone forever?
Yeah, so the old bears, like it was a free to play game for a reason. It was highly experimental.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if it was going to work. And so because people have made this large economy now around the bears that exist, it seems counterproductive to
Free the bears.
to free the bears, and also like it doesn't seem like a good move for the company. Well, and it's also
Yeah.
not in our resources, because we're not intending to go support plasma bears in the same way. We would have to redeploy all the work. And everyone's really focused on Neon District right now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we have a giant amount of work that's lined up to ship. So,
Not on
but
the roadmap.
we are sitting with a Plasma Bears World game design from our game designer, who does say it is the best game design he has ever written. And we do have, we're owners of the Plasma Bear IP. So potentially there could be a resurrection of plasma bears in some capacity. And there's probably an economy we could figure out with old bears, and what does that translate to, and bears that made it, and what does that translate to. And even in Neon District in our world, we can honor bears that survived in creative ways, such as, getting perks and experiences that otherwise you wouldn't have. But
Well,
it just
I'll
needs,
settle for just a plasma bear shirt. I'm kidding.
you can get a plasma bear shirt. You just got to buy one.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I got my Blockade Games shirt. I rock that all the time. What my last question for you in regards to this space, and then I want to get into the rapid fire, and then I'm gonna let you go. What other like DAO NFT projects are piquing your interest? I think I saw at NFT NYC you were talking about Squiggle DAO. What other things are just piquing your interest?
Well, so and New York NYC or NFT NYC happens like next week.
Oh,
I think it
okay.
starts like October, like, or November 1st.
Okay.
That was Marfa. So in Marfa, the Art Blocks community got together. I feel like Art Blocks would be the most fitting NFT project for the Decred community, because it's a lot of it is with cypherpunk roots and computer science roots back to the even 1970s. Sometimes like I feel like really early 1970s of um, generative art. And we're seeing a lot of those artists, both famous and then ones that were inspired by that movement, are working with art blocks to make these pieces. And so it's the most cypherpunk, basically, of
Okay.
all the different NFT movements.
I think that was something that I'm going to have to relay to Luke, because my understanding, and again, I'm not a developer, but Decred does have plans to integrate like ERC compatibility. I think 721, but I'm pretty sure it is kind of starting to develop on the roadmap of how can we get some of the ERC 721 tokens on the DEX, is my understanding. And so thank you for even mentioning that project, and hopefully Luke hears this. But was there anything else you were going to say? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, like other NFT projects to watch. So have you guys? I don't know if you've heard of Star Atlas. It's a Solana game,
Yes.
but it's very polished. I think it's probably the most polished of the lot so far. We talk about Axie being a trailblazer, but because they were so early, it's not like they did everything perfectly. So there's frustrations there around being a first mover and like having this economy, an open world economy. But being so successful as they are, it means they have legs to go and take what worked and build on top of that.
Sure.
And then there, YGG, who was a big component of Axie with the esports focus, they've done very well and they have exciting news coming. So yeah, I guess like looking at gaming as it doesn't need to be the end game, and the assets that you have in gaming don't need to be the end game, but they can be an invitation. You can think about if you de-risk someone to come and make an invitation for them to come in and participate, which could lead to them acquiring their most valuable. If let's say Bitcoin or Decred is their end game, having the opportunity to get to walk that path and get it is still valuable. And it doesn't mean that those initial like entry level parts need to be the most secure as far as like we think of Bitcoin and Decred. Like sure, but it just means like we can give a little in some ways to optimize for user experience, to move a little faster, if it means that it allows the world to participate quicker into the core story, which is, empowering everyone in the world and having sovereignty.
Who are I know this may be a question you can't answer, but who are some of your favorite NFT artists? That might not be, you might be not able to answer that. I found X Copy Art because of you and Plasma Bears, so thank you for that. Um, yeah, but so who are some of your favorite that have been around, and maybe some up and comers that you like? Just throw out a couple.
Oh man. I love genuine human art. So genuine human art is completely flying under the radar right now. It's beautiful pixel art. The focus is on humanity, um, human like experiences in a dystopian cyberpunk future. And they've done like music videos for bands like Gunship and other indie bands, but like they're really cool. So genuine human, and their Twitter handle is genuine human art. But then, so Signal Noise is another really fun one. His artwork almost reminds me a little bit of like Saved by the Bell, or like Lisa Frank, but but more like, but definitely more cool.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? And he's still kind of under the radar too. So, and I'm trying to think who else is. Um, I'd have to think more about it. I am not currently a collector
Okay. Okay.
per se,
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to.
although there are some. I mean, like I would.
I promised everyone I would try to squeeze the most alpha out of you, and I just think you're a visionary, so I want to hear what you think. Um, I know that
Well,
you
there's
have to.
another. There's one more project called I think Democracies. It's something like that. That's an art block project, and
Okay.
something that they do that's really cool is a tile. It's like tile stitching, but the environments have like um, generative weather around their cities.
That's super cool.
They're really cool. So
That is really
like
cool.
I don't know how famous they are yet, but they caught my interest as being like a really cool project.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So anyone listening, you got a very lucky episode to tune into. Is there a place for layer two lightning integrate? So these questions now, I want these to be rapid fire. Like I don't want you to go super into detail because these are the questions that are from the community. It's as simply as you can answer these. Is there a place for
Okay.
layer two Lightning integrated for gaming, or will everything be built on Ethereum Solana for gaming?
Well, I think so. People just don't want to spend their Bitcoin, right? So like that's so when we did a Lightning integration with a game, no one used it. But this was also back in 2018, 20 no 2019. And what I hear today from other Bitcoin developers is that actually Lightning Network is being used. So maybe that's changing. I haven't done my research there to give it like a. I just know that I'm hesitant because I know Bitcoin and like those types of currencies are the end game. So people are less likely to like play with them.
What? Hold on, I had the question. That's not a good question. I don't want to ask that. How can the Decred community? How can the Decred community create more awareness?
So I think like we're missing educationally currently the why. Um, it's getting lost in the noise of the markets and and like really telling the story and owning the brand, that cypherpunk brand. I mean, being a hacker is like that hacker ethos is cool, and and creating experiences where I mean yeah, I know that you guys probably aren't ever going to have NFTs, right? Like that's not on the roadmap.
Well, I can't say that, but I'd be super interested to hear what your thoughts about, like, what would that, how could that be, like, what would that mean to the protocol in your opinion if we did do something like that?
Well, I don't know what you guys would do. I just know historically that I thought something like colored coins were really interesting before, and back when I was at Decred, I remember having conversations about that, and it didn't seem like it was feasible at the time. But having things like NFTs where you can make experiences like walking through educational tutorials or challenges or putting together hackathons or like capture the flag or things experiences where you can attract the type of community that is your general user base, and having rewards and badges that can reflect that. Using tokens for that way, like even if they're non-value tokens, is still cool. Like that's still a really cool achievement. It's like a little trophy,
Yeah,
and communities generally love that. So like,
yeah.
um, it's if you can.
Personally, I would love to see Decred fund like something in Decentraland, like a building or something, like a headquarters, a Decred headquarters in Decentraland. So to things like that to me seem like very interesting. You could host like events to attract people's attention, sort of become like these digital corporations that natively exist in the metaverse. Like if we could start funding some of that sort of development, I think would be super cool. What do you think about that sort of stuff? Obviously, we're a very conservative
I think
project.
I think Decentraland is tough because it's hard to get people into the it's hard well, and you have a specific type of user, and like you know what I mean, like I don't think you're going to convert Ethereum users into being Decred users necessarily,
Okay.
because yeah, but I could see you guys having experiences that are targeting your like type of security focused folks or people, or even the narrative and the brand building of the story. There's ways to monetize the story that's really like for a community DAO participation, where you could build this like secondary layer on top of and tell the story of the why, where there's shared ownership of that sort of creative work, um, without it needing to be tied to Decentraland. Because honestly, like I love Decentraland, but I wouldn't go build for myself or spend resources building something in Decentraland because it's already kind of hard to bring users to Decentraland.
Okay.
And then if you want to take those users from Decentraland to Decred, then that's like
Even harder.
how many people are
Yeah.
going to make it?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
this is why I don't design products. But yes, no, you're right. You're right.
yeah, so like you got to think about the lowest hanging fruit and what's the biggest reward, and why is everybody here at the end of the day? And like everybody align on that vision, and then create an experience around that. that attracts new talent because they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, I vibe with that, and they come too. So
No, I completely agree. And this last question, and then I'm gonna let you go. General, and you've kind of been doing this, but some constructive marketing criticism. If I were to pull you into the project today, what would you do to get more attention? Like, what would what would you do? What would be your ideas? What would you implement today, and try to get people to care?
well, Decred's really different, like it's so different. Like we're talking about this problem of people being completely oblivious to the why, and I would really focus on telling the story. You know, story is the most powerful tool. Storytellers are usually the most powerful people in the room.
Okay.
So you guys are completely sitting in contrast to everything that's happening, but doesn't mean you have to like sit out. You don't have to sit on the sidelines. You can be an active participant, telling the story, creating brand and identity. And like I don't know if there's ways to tap into accessibility and being more inclusive. Uh, but and it's also, it doesn't have to come with toxicity, right? Like you don't have to put down things that other people are experimenting with, and because then people are naturally going to want to play in this space. So if you have people playing in Ethereum and these other tokens and projects and being creative, and that's fun, and if they come to Decred, and if people in Decred were just to say, well, everyone else is full of crap and none of this, that is really putting off for people that are just trying to try new things. They're going to be looking at Decred as an invitation to explore something new, and what is your story and who is this community. And so like, not necessarily like, it doesn't have to be a put down for why not everyone else and why only us, as much as it needs to be like, we're the cool kids in the room that have this part figured out and we're waiting for everyone else to catch up, but we love that everyone's experimenting. And like you can change that narrative and be more positive and constructive and drive experimentation, but in a way that is ethical. And it's okay to be ethical and have ethical commentary, but um I guess like that's a lot of the reasons why people moved away from Bitcoin maximalism, right?
Yeah,
Like people don't want to be told they're not allowed to go and create NFT games, for example,
for
right?
sure.
Like, so you say that and everyone else is just going to ignore you. They don't care what you have to say anymore.
No, I completely agree. And this actually sounds very similar to some of the thoughts we heard from Chris Dannon last month. And like you said, that why is just so important, and being able to communicate that. Coin artist, I want to just thank you for your time. It means so much to me, honestly, that you come on, and I just love being able to feel like I'm a part of your journey. Is there anything that I didn't bring up, anything that I didn't mention, anything that you'd like to talk about, or I just want to give the closing word to you? It can be any project you're working on, or just a message to the community, or anything.
Yeah, I think so I'd like to say I hope the Decred project goes on for a long time. And I think that the intelligence level in the community of the Decred project is way higher than so many other communities. And so, like I just I really appreciate you guys. It's not an easy job. It's not easy to like be the like really technical, like technically incredible project that you are, and having to try to communicate that story. But I think you guys can do it. And so yeah, definitely hit me up if there's things in the future you want to explore or get feedback on. I just uh, yeah, I will always love Decred, and I've learned so much from having my time with the project, and the relationships I had there when I had them.
Yeah, I think I speak for the entire community when I say, we're all just honored to have been a part of your journey, and thank you for continuing to, come on Decred in depth, and spread the good word, and spend time with the community. So it means a lot to us.
Of course, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, coin artist. Take care. Take care, guys. Bye.